if you want.
We're going live.
Okay. We'll do it at the last, Jake. Is that okay? Okay.
Either or. It's a mental health thing, so that'd be a good time to talk about it, though.
Okay. Mayor, are you on the
All
line?
right, it is 7 o'clock. This is Andy. It is time to start the meeting. I hope everybody is online. As a reminder, please mute your phones if you're not speaking. I already hear some background noise. The only way the last 2 months of experience has taught me that these mass meetings work is if you will kindly mute if you're not speaking. And then the other problem is you forget to unmute when you want to say something, and we can deal with that. So, hey, welcome everybody. This is our May meeting. Hard to believe. It's still feels like fall. I had to go outside and cover up plants today because we have a frost warning, although Mother's Day is past. So a lot of things have changed immensely. So welcome to our meeting. And I think we have a proclamation that we've been asked to make. I'll let President Joe open the meeting first. I'd just like to say one word about these proclamations. You know, I do get a number of requests for proclamations, and some are worthy and some are questionable or some are not. I forward these to the council, every one that I get, for your response. It's just not my decision if you want to issue a proclamation. So when we send those out to the leadership of your council, please don't take them lightly. Please take a look at them. I know the one that we're going to do this evening, Ms. Woljeric, took the lead in researching it and developing the proclamation. So I feel very, very good about that. So with that being said, President Edwards, it is your meeting, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is Joe Edwards. And the first thing we need to do is to recognize Kim Strang, who will be taking minutes tonight. She'll be acting clerk. So Kim, would you call the roll and note the presence of a quorum?
Sure. Scott Fry? Scott?
Here.
Mike Johns?
Here.
Jake Gilbert?
Here.
Cindy Spoljaric?
Here.
Scott Willis?
Here.
Troy Patton?
Here.
Joe Edwards?
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I don't think there are any material changes to the agenda as I have seen it this afternoon and this evening. So the first thing we'll do after the quorum is the approval of the minutes of the meeting on April the 27th of this year. Any questions on the minutes? If no questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Jake Gilbert.
Is there a second?
Scott Fry, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Can you call the, let's call the roll. Kim, do it again.
Scott Willis?
Yes.
Cindy Spoljaric?
Yes.
Jake Gilbert?
Yes.
Mike Johns?
Yes.
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Scott Fry?
Yes.
Troy Patton?
Yep.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, the next item are is the claims docket for May the 11th today. Are there any questions on the claims? If no questions, is there a motion? Excuse me, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Joe. I guess I'm curious. I don't know what the expectation here is, knowing that they're not appropriately lined up.
Well, let's let Cindy Gossard explain that if she would, and I think it's pretty simple explanation, but go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, Scott, the amounts, what was actually paid on P cards is correct. It's just the lining up, for whatever reason, when it came from over from the bank, Finley and Cook's working on it now. I didn't know if you heard my explanation earlier, but that's the only issue. It's all of those vendors were paid. They're just not in the right, the description is not matching up with the vendor. You'll have Chiba, you bought a lawn mower. So, but the amount, total amount that was paid on P cards is correct.
Okay.
Scott, does that answer your question?
Yes, I understand what happened.
Okay.
I'm just confused that we're going to approve something that doesn't line up, and that's just a clerical thing, and we'll get that squared away moving forward.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the claims? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Cindy Spillier.
Is there a second?
Second, Troy Patton.
Okay. Motion properly made and seconded. Kim, will you call the roll?
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spillier,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. The next item of business is ordinance 2014, amending certain human resource policies and procedures. I kind of read through this today, and I think it is mostly to kind of align our personnel procedures with this coronavirus, kind of defining time off and that sort of thing. So are there any questions on this ordinance?
Joe, you skipped the proclamation, I think.
I sure did. Well, I'll come right back to it. Let's get this ordinance taken care of since we're so deep into it right now.
This is Scott Fry. I have several questions, actually.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
So in reading through this, first of all, I agree completely that, looking for opportunities to help are important. But I am concerned about a few things that the way it's worded here, and I'd like a little deeper explanation if possible. Some of the wording that has me really confused. There's a bank of hours of 60 hours, which may be increased or decreased at the city's sole discretion. It's the increased part that has me really rather concerned, and I'd like a little greater explanation as to how that would actually play out or what's involved for that to play out. And then another thing that concerned me, and I apologize, I'm trying to get to it so that I can read it correctly or reference it correctly. But it was referencing, in the event of school closure, anyone who had kids that were in the schools, that would be allowable time off. Again, I understand the need, but when there is what appears to be an open-ended number of hours, that concerns me. And forgive me, I'm going to ask this question, and I should know the answer to this, and forgive me for not knowing it, but isn't there short-term disability insurance that would help cover in the event that there was necessity for very long periods of time that was, short-term leave?
Okay, is Todd there?
Joe, this is Mike Johns. I had a couple questions too. Do you want me to hold mine until after Scott's
Let's
answered?
hold until Scott's are answered. Let's hold
Okay.
yours, Mike. Is there anybody from administration or our attorney who would like to answer these questions?
Mr. President, this is Todd. I can speak to that broadly. Those policies, and Brian can opine as well, those recommended policies are based upon the guidance we're receiving from our employment council under the conditions of the pandemic. Specific to the short-term disability question, the town, or the city, I should say, does not fund that as part of the benefits package for employees. What we do make available is through a third-party AFLAC. If employees want to choose a short-term disability policy, they pay for that wholly in a biweekly payroll deduction. But beyond that, on the open-ended hours, I would defer to Brian and his partner on the response to that.
This ordinance was merely created to give some flexibility in the human resources area for the various employees. And so, as you see, the public safety have their separate ones. This was introduced about a month ago so that we would have the opportunity to answer any questions and delve into it and get the information that you needed ahead of time. Given the fact that you have a series of questions now that would probably need third-party explanation or additional documents, such as what's already inside our policies and procedures and insurance coverages, as well as the fact there seems to be more questions, perhaps it's best to continue this to the next meeting until all the information can be assembled for everybody and everyone has their questions answered well before we adopt this. Just a suggestion.
Okay, would this suit the council that we continue this until our next meeting? Is there any objection? Hearing none, let's continue this to our first meeting in June. Okay, Stacy London and Mayor Cook, I owe you an apology for bypassing that. I didn't do it on purpose. I did it in I wasn't looking at my notes as closely as I should have. But Stacy London is here with us tonight, recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month. So, Ms. London, would you have anything to say about this proclamation? Or would you care to read it?
Sure. I'd love to just say a few words. I'm thrilled that Westfield has really taken a lead working on the well-being of all its citizens. So I just reached out to Mayor Cook. I work in the tobacco division for the State Department of Health for Hamilton County. And I know that, we've really been educated with mental health and how tobacco relates to them. 1 in 5 adults have mental health, and then 36% of those with mental health issues smoke cigarettes. So my main idea for getting this proclamation out was just to make the community aware of how we need to support those with mental health, and then also, so I would just get a few minutes just to talk about our resources for those that smoke with mental health. So there's a 1-800-QUIT-NOW line that state actually just issued free nicotine replacement. So those individuals can walk right into a pharmacy and get nicotine replacement free to help them quit at this time. And then also we have something for youth called You've Got This, and where youth can text Indiana to 88709. So those are 2 free resources from the state. And that's why I reached out, and just for me to promote those. There's a lot of people that just don't know about the free resources. So I'm thrilled with what Westfield's doing, and I just want to make people in the community aware. So that's why I reached out for this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Andy, and I know that that lady has been on this issue for a long, long time. And I say that
just don't call me the tobacco lady,
No, I'll call you the mental health and tobacco lady. How's that? And your interests, your
Tobacco-free.
concerns are, yeah, and they're very
Thank you so
valid.
much, Mayor. Thank you.
Becoming more and more today. I mean, mental health issues are, well, they've been on our mind before all of this COVID issue, and now it is being exaggerated. I think the health and obesity and smoking health and so on has become even more important as we've identified so many people that fall victim to this dreaded disease were those that were compromised. So I really appreciate you coming forward and bringing this to our city.
No worries. Thank you so much for. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
as do I, Ms. London. I think one of our counselors wanted to say something about this. Jake Gilbert is head of the Wellbeing Committee here in Westfield. And Jake, do you have something you'd like to say here?
Sure, thank you. So the Wellbeing Coalition of Westfield, we're really trying to just help our city grow into an area where all can thrive. I know we've talked about this at the meetings before, but we are absolutely concerned with the overall well-being of all of our citizens, mental, physical, social, emotional. We are constantly adding service providers. Just this week, we added someone who has a focus on foster care parents and adoptive parents and making sure that they have all their needs met with formula, diapers, clothing, and we're constantly adding. So you can find so much about what the great nonprofits in our city are doing at wellbeingcoalitionwestfield.com. Okay, in addition to that, I would just like to say, since this is Mental Health Month, we just believe that, we all have mental health. It's not like you're either healthy or you're not, as much as it's a scale, like your physical health. Some days you feel better than others physically. Some days you feel better than others mentally. But if you go to our resources online, we have all kinds of partners: St. Vincent, Prevail, Fairbanks, Aspire, National Alliance of Mental Illness, and local providers like Celebrate Recovery in Westfield, Meditation and Mindfulness Studios, The Cabin, MindFit Counseling, all kinds of great and local providers. So please don't be discouraged by the obstacles if you need help. Sometimes people feel like they could never afford it, but you would be amazed at how affordable it actually is because of the amount of people that want to make it affordable to people who need it. So if you are out there listening, or you know someone who needs assistance and they feel like they can't afford it, or they don't have transportation, or just the overall stigma is keeping them from seeking help, please reach out to the coalition, and we will do everything we can to remove the obstacles to help our residents with their mental health. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. The next
Jake, this is Andy. Jake, thank you so much for talking about the Wellbeing Coalition. For those of you that have been around the periphery of it, this all began well over 10 years ago with our youth assistance program, and now we're expanding the whole thing to that concept to all of our population. So this is, and I'm so happy to have Jake Gilbert grabbing a hold of this. So council, I'll ask you to consider a proclamation that designates the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And,
can we do this by voice? Can we do this by voice vote?
We can, and I'll just ask you to approve this proclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Looks like it's unanimous.
Well, officially, I haven't read it yet, Joe, but if you've already done it, that's okay.
I've read it, and it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, our next item of new business now is Ordinance 20-15, and this is the 100% voluntary annexation of Chatham Hills, Phase 17. Okay.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, this is Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, I have a 100% voluntary annexation of approximately 45 acres to be part of the Chatham Hills subdivision. This is located on the west side of Horton Road, south of 206th Street. This item is eligible for a public hearing tonight and would be back in front of you for adoption consideration in June, along with the corresponding fiscal plan. I do have the petitioner here. He does not plan to present, but is available for questions, as am I if you have any of the department. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the counselors? This, of course, is an introduction, and we are to have a public hearing on tonight for this item. Now, the way the hearings are conducted is if you are hearing this, you need to email to the Economic Development Department your concerns or your approval or disapproval or whatever you think that you wish to do. But I'm going to call the public hearing open at 7:20. Okay, this will be a quick minute. I'm going to declare the public hearing closed at 7:21. So since this is only an introduction, it won't be up for consideration until June the 8th at our next meeting. The next item is ordinance 20-16. It's the voluntary annexation of Chatham Hills, Phase 18. Pam, do you have something to describe this?
Yes, again, this is a 100% voluntary annexation. This is approximately 39 acres, again, to be part of the Chatham Hills subdivision. This area is located on the east side of Horton Road and north side of 199th Street. As with the last, this is public hearing tonight and adoption consideration along with the fiscal plan at your next meeting in June.
Okay, again, since this is only an introduction, we are to have a public hearing this evening. So I declare the public hearing open at 7:22. Okay, I declare the hearing closed at 7:23. So this will be up for consideration. Well, it'll be up before the Plan Commission on June the 3rd, and they will recommend on July the 6th, and it'll be up for adoption if it gets that far on July the 13th. So thank you for that, Pam.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, annexations do not actually go to the Plan Commission, so it'll just be in front of you at your June meeting.
Well, they have to have a public hearing though, don't they? It says APC public hearing on June the 3rd on the agenda.
I think you're looking at the next item.
Looking at Hoosier Hills? You're right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Hoosier Hills. Okay, I need to get my glasses checked, I guess. The next item is Hoosier Hills. This item is only a council introduction, and it will go indeed to the Plan Commission on June the 3rd and be reviewed there. So do any of the members of the council have anything to say about ordinance 20-18, Hoosier Hills?
Joe Edwards, this is John Dorsey with the Community Development Department. If you would like, I could introduce this. I do believe our petitioner has a presentation on this project as well.
Go ahead, John. I didn't see your name on the agenda, but you're quite welcome. Go ahead.
For the record, I am Jonathan Dorsey. Before you tonight for introduction is the Hoosier Hills Plan Unit Development. This project is generally located at 18325 Spring Mill Road and totals an approximate 35 acres in size. This ordinance proposes to modify the current AGSF1 agricultural single-family rural district to allow for an agritourism, commercial, and agricultural uses. More specifically, The proposed uses include condominium storage units, lodgings, the shipping and processing of agricultural products, and general agritourism. Here this evening is the petitioner, Noah Herron, and his representative, Matt Pleasant, to give a presentation on the project and address any questions. Staff will also remain available to answer questions afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, Noah.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan, members of the council. This is Matt Pleasant of Pleasant Cities, LLC, 5821 Julian Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, representing Noah Herron of Herron Holdings, LLC, the owner and operator of Urban Vines and Urban Farmer in Westfield. Slide, please. Thank you. Hoosier Hills PUD is an exciting project located generally at 18326 Spring Mill Road, just south of 186th Street, south of Sundown Gardens, and the Westfield Grand Park Sports Campus. Slide, please. This location is currently being used as a horse farm. The property is roughly 35 acres surrounded by Sundown Gardens and agricultural residential uses. Slide, please. As you can see here, the site is currently zoned to AGSF1, agriculture. The properties surrounding the proposed site to the east, south, and west are AGSF1 as well, and the Garden Market PUD is bordering it to the north. Slide, please. The comprehensive plan designates the property to be new suburban prior to the establishment of the Grand Park Sports Addendum. The Grand Park Sports Addendum contemplates sports corporate campus immediately across the street. In short, that means regional, commercial, industrial uses. Slide, please. With existing residential single-family detached homes further to the west, it's actually 2 parcels over is the edge of that development. It is expected there to be an extension of that neighborhood or something a little bit more dense, such as townhomes or duplexes in between that established neighborhood and this property, the proposed site. This slide shows the context in which the Hoosier Hills would be part of. Moving from east to west, the Wheeler PUD, designated in that light blue color right there, establishes an industrial and office campuses. Agricultural land contemplated for, industrial and offices are the Wheeler PUD. Moving west to that is currently the agricultural land. It's also contemplated for maybe additional commercial industrial space all the way up to Spring Mill Road. And then you have Sundown Gardens across the street and Hoosier Hills, which is our site that we're discussing today. And then as you move forward west, you'll run into more residential. For context, Spring Mill Road has been designated as a primary arterial, that expects the intense, dense traffic flows that you would normally want to see. Slide, please. The Hoosier Hills development is broken into 3 distinct districts. You have the agricultural, the commercial, and the agritourism districts. The PUD has an underlying zoning district of AGSF1. It's exactly the same as been established now. With the experienced growth, the owner, Noah Herron, intends to move the processing operations of Urban Vines Winery and all the operations of Urban Farmer to the Hoosier Hills site, located in the buildings existing today. As you can see on that map under the agritourism area, that's where all the processing and holding of both the Urban Vines and Urban Farmers will be located. By moving the processing facilities of Urban Vines and Urban Farmer to the Hoosier Hills, Urban Vines would experience, well, both businesses will be experiencing less truck traffic on 161st. Urban Farmer will just completely move up to this site location, thus having reduced truck traffic on 161st Street where they currently reside today. For context, for the amount of growth that these businesses have seen, Urban Farmer Seeds has experienced 35% growth every single year since its establishment in 2009. They moved here in 2013. They have transitioned year after year, growing and growing, and now it's time to get a little bit bigger. The new location will allow an expansion from their current place, which is about 4,000 square feet, to the new place would be about 10,000 square feet, allowing ample growth and opportunity for the Urban Farmer Seeds to really grow into what it could really become. Urban Vines Winery has experienced a 60% growth in production every year since its establishment in 2017. Urban Vines produced over 40,000 bottles of wine in 2019, and this number might be pre-COVID, but they were expecting and probably still expecting to be close to 80,000 bottles this year in 2020 alone. So Urban Vines is experienced immense growth, one that we can all relate to and really appreciate that Noah is really electing to stay here in Westfield and wanting to keep growing his business. Also contemplated in the agritourism districts are farm stands, community activities, fundraising events, lodging facilities, vineyard, and educational tours that would be permitted. As you can see, the commercial district contemplate in the northwest corner contemplates a condominium storage facility as well as lodging and all agritourism uses. And lastly, the agricultural use on the west side and moving toward the south side of this development is for the vineyard and orchard productions, growing for the productions of the wine and such. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. These shown on the screen right now are the existing buildings on site today. I'm sorry, there was a delay. I want you to go back, please, to the existing buildings. Thank you. These are the existing buildings on site today. Urban Vines and Urban Farmer Processing Holdings are intended to bring these buildings up to their respective building codes and function within these buildings. Now, next slide, please. So I think that by holding a lot of those existing buildings, we would like to keep somewhat of the farming architecture styles that are currently there and also expanded upon. At the top of your screen, you'll see concepts for the lodging buildings intended to look like barns. The lodging is contemplated to provide another option besides hotels for sports teams, corporate retreats, families traveling to the area, so that they may all stay together instead of separate locations spread out potentially through different hotels. I like to think this as an example. I like to travel to Hilton Head Island with my family. We generally have about 20 of us traveling. And this is a really good opportunity to be in one location, to be all together without having to be all split up in their hotels constantly. Additionally, almost all the money from the lodging services in this, to compare to like the hotel services, because it is owned by Noah Herring and Herring Holdings here in Westfield, who resides in Westfield and grows his businesses in Westfield, the money is more likely to stay in the region itself. And I can provide you the documentation with this, but various studies have shown that between 65 and 75% of the revenue that is received from a local business owner, it actually stays into so 75% of every dollar, 65% to 75% of every dollar stays in the local region, rather than if you had someone, an outside owner, let's say, of the hotels, it actually leaves the region, and it drops down to about 22 to 45%. That is, in my opinion, fairly large and disservice to the community. We pump out a lot, shop local, shop often. Those are really important in something like this, especially have an opportunity to provide these lodges. A different example of what you can expect. Moving on to the south, the condominium self-storage facility example shown at the bottom of the page also take the same architecture styles as the farm, integrate the use within the development. Much like the self-storage facilities contemplated for the Gristmill Commercial District that was also approved in 2019, I believe. These will be temperature-controlled, electric-capable, for-sale facilities. No living arrangements will be permitted inside, and these are not for lease. Next slide, please. Lastly, this is an anticipated illustrative site plan. As you can see, the lodging is positioned on the northeast corner. This condos, self-storage units on the northwest. We believe this concept is representative and complementary of the surrounding future land uses, with Sundown Gardens to the north, which is a commercial use, thus permitting the lodging and the condo self-storage uses would be generally appropriate as a buffer as you start moving south. As a good transition for moving south, it's south of the property, you kind of anticipate, it could be commercial, it could be residential. We're just not quite sure at this time. So by allowing this good transition from commercial, moving to some more commercial but light commercial, the self-storage, the storage facilities, are not very intensive at all. There's hardly any people that visit them. The lodging does have some traffic every day. However, it's not as immensely labor intensive as you would as a store or commercial project. Moving south is more of an agricultural use with a little bit of visitors, and as you keep moving south, obviously could be more commercial or residential. The same can be said moving from east to west. I initially explained earlier that on the east side of the property, east side of Spring Mill, it is that campus, commercial campus. So right now with the Wheeler, it has offices and industrial. Moving to Spring Mill, possibly being more commercial as well, something a little more intensive. And then you have Hoosier Hills. And then next to it on the west is contemplated to be more residential. We believe that by having the storage facilities as well as the vineyard orchard to be located against the residential properties, the potential residential, both from the south and the west, is actually very complementary to what the potential uses could be in the future, negating any negative circumstances that could happen in the future. In reality, we're thinking about future and not necessarily what's now. What's now is just farmland, and quite frank, so we are looking really, really, really far ahead about being the true good neighbor that's around. In summary, the Hoosier Hills provides a perfect transition, and I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. Noah Heron and I are both welcome for any feedback that you guys should have, and I appreciate all your time today. It's good to be back in Westfield. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pleasant. Do any council members have anything they wish to add at this time?
This is Scott Fry. I've got one question, and I think I just heard something wrong, and I just want a little bit of clarification. I believe it was the second to last slide. I thought I heard you say there was no indoor, indoor facility or anything like that. There's no staying indoors, and if I understand it correctly, I must have heard that wrong. Is that correct?
That was in reference to the condominium self-storage facility. I know that from my understanding, when Gristmill was going through with their same product, there was a concern about having people potentially being able to stay and live in those facilities, those storage facilities. So we just, because they are electric and temperature controlled for a lot of the cars and the stuff. So we just wrote into the ordinance itself. It's actually in there as well. It says like nobody will be ever allowed to rent to live in that location inside those units.
Gotcha. Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Like I said, seems like I was right. I misunderstood. So thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner from the council?
Yeah, this is Joe. This is Mike Johns. I'm just a little concerned that we're mixing so many different businesses in a relatively small area. We've got a wine processing operation, a shipping operation, condominium storage, and cottage type lodging, all kind of lumped within, I guess, 34, 35 acres. But I would, as we move forward on this to the APC, I'd like to have a better clarification as to how those businesses are going to work together, and maybe how the roads are going to be outlined within that acreage.
Appreciate it.
This is Scott Willis. I have one comment kind of along the lines of what Mike was saying. I love the concept of the agribusiness and the production that would happen at that site. I haven't warmed up yet to the self-storage facility, and not sure how I feel about lodging as well. I'll be anxious to see how APC fleshes that out over the next few weeks. But as of right now, I agree with Mike. I think it's just a mass of different things going on there, and I'm not sure I like the way that feels. So I'm open-minded, but have some concerns. That's it.
Understood. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Cindy Spoljaric. I've shared some of my comments already with the petitioner. And one thing I didn't share, using the underlying zoning of Ag SF1 for what I believe are mostly commercial uses is a really bad idea. And I just couldn't support that. There's also a lot of exemptions in this ordinance from, our standards, which I get we have to be flexible in certain projects, but this is not set up in terms of the zoning that's being requested to actually achieve, I think, all that needs to occur to make something like this successful. So just want to share, I'm having a lot of problems with this one. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Yes, this is Jake Gilbert. Noah, my wife's at your place all the time. Thank you for Urban Vines. But question here, Matt, the lodging, I would just like to know a little more. How many lodges are there, and how many rooms or people do you anticipate it being able to sleep?
Yeah, so in the PUD, it does reference that a maximum of 30 people per lodge per building is what it is. So 30 people per building. Like I said before, like someone like where you have a couple families or a full team or team with their families are able to stay in the same location. Right now, under the illustrative site plan, which again is not been engineered whatsoever, so this is just a concept. I think it shows like 36 as of right now. And again, I just want to reiterate, it's not engineered to properly to fully. It doesn't have the landscaping that's supposed to be involved in there. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. It's just kind of been placed in there fairly quickly.
So that was my next question. So this slide here, you're saying there's about 36 lodges and how many storage units?
66 by my count.
Now, on the southeast corner, the residential home, that's someone that's currently living there now, right? And
that is correct.
Are there any considerations that need to be made for how this will affect their property? Have you reached out to that homeowner?
They will be getting a letter in the mail about I'm sorry. They will get a letter in the mail about a neighborhood meeting, and we are more than happy to have that discussion with them. They were also under consideration because of where they are, and they're still there to have a lot of the agricultural uses, the vineyard, the vineyard and the orchard uses to be roughly right up in their backyard.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? If not, this will go on to the Advisory Plan Commission for a public hearing on June the 3rd. Okay, the next item is Ordinance 20-19, Urban Vines Amendment 1.
Good evening, Council. Again, this is John Dorsey with the Community Development Department. Before you tonight for introduction is the Urban Vines Plan Unit Development Amendment 1. This project is located at 303 East 161st Street and totals approximately 5 acres in size. This project proposes to remove the requirement for an outdoor restroom facility from the existing Ordinance 19-10, which is the Urban Vines PUD. This request anticipates and is contingent on the Hoosier Hills PUD, the proposed Ordinance 2018 that you just spoke on, which would allow the existing Urban Vines building to dedicate the space for an indoor restroom facility. Again, the petitioner Noah Herring and his representative Matt Pleasant are here with us and would like to give a short presentation on the project. Thank you.
Thank you again, Council. And thank you, Jonathan. Matt Pleasant of Pleasant Cities, LLC, 5821 Julian Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana, representing Noah Herring of Herring Holdings, LLC, owner and operator of Urban Vines Winery and Urban Farmers in Westfield. Slide, please. As indicated by staff, the next PUD is an amendment to the Urban Vines PUD to update the concept plan located at 303 East 161st Street. Urban Vines Winery has become a prominent and leading establishment in Westfield, which is not only known now for Grand Park Sports Campus, but also now Urban Vines. Next slide, please. The original Urban Vines PUD was adopted before the Westfield City Council in July of 2019. This amendment proposal today is not adding any additional land, or we're not adding any additional buildings. Rather, we're just updating the original PUD concept plan. Next slide, please. With the experience growth, Noah Herring intends to move the processing operations currently located in the facility to Hoosier Hills, as you just heard. By moving the processing facilities to Hoosier Hills, Urban Vines would experience less truck traffic and allow some minor interior remodeling. In the original Urban Vines PUD, there was a requirement to have an outdoor restroom facility due to the popularity of the tasting room and their growth. By removing the processing operations to the Hoosier Hills location, referenced prior to this, this would allow ample space to add additional restrooms, expand some of the tasting, and rather than having people outside, stay outside in an additional building. Next slide, please. As you can see here, the only substantial change to the concept plan is the removal of the outdoor storage. And again, I'm going to say it 100 more times. I just want to be completely 100% clear that this is the only proposed change from the original PUD, and this is the only thing intended to be amended this time. Is the restrooms is the only thing. The PUD was short and simple, short and sweet. And that's it. I would like to thank you for your time. And again, both Noah and I are welcome to any feedback or questions that you should have.
Is there any questions or comments from any members of the council? Hearing none, this will go for a public hearing in front of the Area Plan Commission on June the 3rd. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the agreement between Hamilton County, Indiana and the City of Westfield for Sun Park Drive Sidewalk Project. Jeremy, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Council. For the record, Jeremy Lawler with the Public Works Department. At the last council meeting, I described to you the sidewalk project through the Community Development Block Grant Program with Hamilton County. This agreement simply commits the city to performing the work as applied for and described, and subsequently Hamilton County to reimburse us at 100% cost of the construction, assuming we follow all the guidelines that are set forth. So it's a document that would typically go to the Board of Public Works. It came in a little late, and we need to get it executed by or approved by you all so that we can stay on track with our construction schedule.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions from the council on this item? Basically, as I understand it, this is a project. It's $140-some thousand, if I remember correctly in reading, that is reimbursed to us through Hamilton County from grants from the federal and state government. Am I correct on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, we estimated it at 151. After design and public bid, it came in at 109. So the numbers in the document are a little deceiving, but we will get reimbursed whatever we expend up to $147,000.
Okay.
And yes, it is a federal housing and urban development grant passed down through the Hamilton County Housing Authority, which then delegates or awards the money to the locals that apply and are successful.
And we need to affirm this evening, is what you're saying.
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Okay, any questions from the council on this? If not, do I have a motion?
This is Scott Willis. So moved.
Second by somebody.
Second, Jake.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a proper, let's see, Cindy, I'm going to give you the second. I think I heard you first, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, we have a motion properly made and seconded to enter into this agreement. Kim, would you call the roll?
Cindy Spiljerik.
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Jake Gilbert.
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
The last item I have is city council comments, and I've got 3 or 4 people that I've put up here. Troy, I'm going to start with you first. Anything from the Finance Committee?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. In our last meeting, we kind of went over the budget to actual detail. It was our very first one. I would like to publicly acknowledge Tammy Havard and Cindy Gossard in working together to complete the budget versus actual. really, it was really good. I mean, we have some work to do, and we're going to get better at it. But it was our first one, and I really think it was very good. I'm in the process of putting together some comments, and then actually doing maybe a little more formal presentation at our next city council meeting. I know it's going to be a little bit late, and in the future we'll probably do it the one right after our budget versus actual meeting. But I just want to make sure that we have all our T's crossed and I's dotted. But like I said, it really does shed some light on some differences between, like OpenGov and what NAV says. And I think it is enlightening to the public, and it's important to the public to understand some of those things. And frankly, it was a learning experience for myself. I mean, just on how some of those things are accounted for, and then what, each side, whether it be, the mayor's office or the clerk treasurer, how they book certain things and why they book certain things in certain ways. And frankly, neither of them are wrong. It's just they just have a different thought process on managing our finances of the city. So with that being said, my main thing here is I really just want to say thank you very much to Tammy and Cindy and their groups. They've really done a good job, and I really appreciate it. And like I said, the next city council meeting, what I'd like to do is just go a little bit further in depth. And I know we're getting into our budget season as well, so I think it's going to be very helpful.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljaric, excuse me. Do you have any comments from the Plan Commission?
I think Mike's going to do those tonight.
Okay, all righty. Mike, do you have any comments?
I'll give you just a brief review. We had our Advisory Plan Commission meeting last Wednesday on the 6th. There were no consent agenda items, but we did actually have 5 public hearings. All 5 of the public hearings were conducted, and they will all go back to the next Planning Commission for consideration for a recommendation. The first one was on the Chatham Villages Phase 1, which is essentially a Hinkie subdivision, which is directly to the east of the Chatham Hills Clubhouse, 207 lots on 146 acres. There were some questions from the public on that regarding traffic on Tomlinson Road and 203rd Street. The next one was the Austrian Pine subdivision, which is located on the east corner of State Road 32 and Austrian Pine Way. That is simply really the overall development plan for 2 lots on 12.5 acres. No questions or comments from the public on that one. The next one was the Grand Central subdivision, which is at 181st Street and Sun Park. Again, that's a primary plat and overall development plan for 5 lots on 24 acres. No questions or comments on that. Hamilton Memorial subdivision, which is the Washington Park Cemetery Association, and they're looking for basically 1 lot to be developed. It's more or less they called it an event center, but it will be more of a center to have ceremonies, funeral ceremonies, and no questions or comments on that. We did spend a lot of time on the 5th one, which is the Junction PUD, which is Shamrock Land Acquisitions, requesting a change to amendment to the permitted uses and the building height. And that's over at the right across from Riverview Hospital on that piece of land there. We had several questions on that with respect to increased traffic, the appropriateness of switching from the retiree assisted living type of a usage to a multifamily dwelling usage. So there were several comments, and I think we're all waiting to hear back responses on that at the next meeting. And that was it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Jake, do you have anything from your end of well-being or the...
No, sir. I handled it earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other counselors have anything they wish to say at this time? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Joe, I'm sorry. I was trying to get off mute. This is Troy Patton. I'm sorry, Andy, just real quick. Can I just overview comment, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Go right
sorry.
ahead.
I started talking and then I realized I hadn't hit my unmute button yet. So I want to say one thing, just, in light of everything that's going on in the world and in Westfield and literally, obviously across the state of Indiana. And this is really not meant to be a speech, but it is. I really appreciate the fact that, people are looking out for one another. They're trying to do their best. They're trying to make their best judgments, best decisions possible. I will say this, however, I do think that Westfield is a first-class city. We have first-class facilities. We have a first-class Grand Park like none other, not only in Indiana, but throughout the Midwest. I'm very pleased to be here in Westfield and call Westfield my home. I will say this, I am disappointed, whether it be with our state leaders or whomever it may be, that we have 26 ball diamonds or whatever. We have numerous soccer fields. We have numerous citizens in the state of, or in the city of Westfield. And for heaven's sake, when we're talking about social distancing, I have no idea in my mind, other than the fact that the state has ordered us not to do this, that we can't seem to open up Grand Park and let a mom and her daughter, or father and daughter or son throw, catch, play softball, throw a football, kick a soccer ball, and be out in the open. I've spoke to Andy about this, and I'm not trying to steal his thunder. I think he would probably agree with this assessment. I am disappointed, though, that we don't take the lead and step out into the public and say, hey, this is what we want to do. And I know it's bigger than that, and I know there's more issues with that. And I'm not doing it for other comments. I'm just, from my own standpoint, from my own selfish standpoint, it sure would be nice for a lot of those people. Let's say I live in a home and I don't have much of a yard. I mean, I can go to the Monon and I can see every Tom, Dick, and Sally walking down there and be 3 feet from them from side to side on the path. But for God's sakes, I can't go out on a huge baseball diamond in a fenced-in area with my kid and play catch. I think that is disappointing to the people of Westfield. I think it's poor decision-making on the policymakers of our state, and I'm just saying it from my own standpoint, and I hope that some other people write their folks at the state level. So anyways, that's it. That's all I got to say, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Troy. One thing, Mayor, before I turn this over to you, there have been numerous opportunities for us to do certain things, and sometimes you wonder how much good it will do or whether anybody cares or not. But I was visiting with the fellow that runs the Chamber of Commerce, and we were talking about what could be done to help open up the city when the time comes. And tonight, I would tell you, I went out to a restaurant and sat down, and it was well spaced, and I think everybody was obeying what they should have done. But to get back to the signs were going to cost the Chamber of Commerce about $1,500. And I said, well, I'll try to get the city to kick in $750 if you'll handle the other $750. And we agreed on that. But before I could get the deal made or get the payment made, a good citizen, stepped up and paid the city's $750. So there are a lot of good-hearted people in Westfield, and I'm proud to have lived here all my life. So, Mayor, it's your meeting.
Okay, Joe. Thank you. And really, I only have 2 things to go over with you. Number one, the Hamilton County Health Department has worked with Grand Park people, and we will become a testing site, which begins next Wednesday out at the event center. It was free to the public and will be by appointment only. As to details on what it takes to go through that, please visit the Hamilton County site, Health Department. So I think that's a major step forward. A lot of talk all over the radio and TV about testing and free testing and availability of testing. Well, here it is, right here in our own hometown of Westfield, beginning next Wednesday. So check that out. And yeah, Troy, to your comments, I know you're very, very frustrated about the opening of Grand Park. You and I have had discussions about that. As you know, we were going to open to the public, Westfield public, a week ago, and the state personally visited us and said, no, you cannot. So I appreciate your comments. I hope you will, and anybody that feels that way will, in a kind way, direct your comments and opinions to the governor's office. We're trying to walk a fine line here of defining how Grand Park, what it is and how it can best open. It's all revolving around a definition of what is space. Because as these different stages come on, they all address, you may have so many people per what? And that's the question. Is it 100 people per room, or is it 100 people per 400 acres? So we're working with the governor's office. I've been in contact with them this week. William Knox, our director out of Grand Park, is part of a statewide coalition of sports facilities all across the state, and they're all facing the very same question we are. We just happen, of course, to be the largest, but there's 4-acre facilities and 10-acre facilities, and they all are facing the same question. How many people can we have in X amount of space? So we're getting a lot of inquiries from the press. Vicky's handling those, trying to put off until we can get a better answer. But as we go to the press later this week, I hope to have a much better definition from the governor's office. So if any of you are inclined, please write to that office. Let them know that we don't need special attention. Please be very careful. We're not asking for special attention. We're just asking for realistic clarification on reopening the economic development tourism engine of Central Indiana. That's all I have, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. If nothing else, the meeting is adjourned.